Hello and welcome back to my channel. So now that interview season is kind of over, at least for the school I'm going to go to, I thought I would do a video on my PA school interview experience. And I won't be saying like the questions that I was asked or anything like specific to my school, just to like protect and to be respectful to their interview process. But I thought I would just kind of talk about my like preparation process and like my actual interview day and how I was feeling throughout the day and any tips that I have. So I got the email that I was offered an interview. I think it was like November 4th or 5th. It might have been the 5th. And then my interview was December 7th. So I had a little, like barely over a month to prepare. And that was really, it was a lot. At first I wasn't sure because a month is like not that long, I guess. But then when you're thinking about it, like that's a long time to sit and ponder. But I think ultimately I was glad I had that full month. So of course I wanted to do mock interviews before I had my real one. It's just such a great experience. I have had a few interviews in my life before, but none of them were really pre-PA related or just PA school type of mock interviews. So I wanted to do those. So I knew I was comfortable being interviewed and figuring out answers and questions, on the spot. But I've never been asked like PA related stuff, so I of course got on that really quickly and started to book some mock interviews for myself. And the reason why I did so many is because each mock interview has really taught me something different. Obviously I didn't, that's like a retrospect, analyzation, but I knew that they would all give me different perspective. But after having done it, each interview really taught me something different. I'll explain when I go over the interviews that I did, but I think each of them were so pivotal as to why I think I did well in my interview and ultimately got accepted. So my first mock interview was actually at my school with my pre-health advisor. They chose two professors. One was like, I think like a chemistry professor, and the other one was like not related to science or medicine at all. So it was a different perspective because you're actually being questioned. I think he was a philosophy professor, and this was a more scary mock interview. They wanted to prepare you for those awkward circumstances, so they kept asking me situational questions and like, what if your supervising physician doesn't agree with you and you're a PA? And they're just like, very like stuff to make me have to think outside of the box and how I would perform under pressure. And luckily my MBKU interview was not like that at all, but I'm glad I had that experience just in case that came up, so I knew how I reacted and I knew how to handle myself in those situations. So that interview was definitely the most tough and asked me the most like ethical questions and situational things. So then I actually had two mock interviews with the fire department, and I know that sounds like what, but my really good friend, my best friend Kit, her dad is a battalion chief, and so she told me throughout undergrad that if I get an interview that she's gonna set up a mock interview with the fire department. And I was hoping that she was joking because she told me how like beneficial it was and someone she knew like really like benefited from that. But I thought she was joking or like wasn't gonna follow through. But literally as soon as I got that interview, she set them up for me. So they actually had me come in one time and then just answer general PA questions like, why do you want to be a PA, why MBKU, and that mock interview was, they knew about the PA profession, but they didn't know the ins and outs of it and applying and all of that. So that interview really had me explaining what the PA profession is and why I chose MBKU. So that made me really like ponder those questions and have to prepare for those questions, which is great because those are very typical questions that you get. So it was good that I kind of had to explain it to them a little bit, because sometimes you're asked, so what is the role of a physician assistant, and you have to answer it, and you're talking to like a PA and people who know the profession well, but you have to be able to educate someone eventually in your career that doesn't know what a PA is. So that was a really good opportunity for me to do that. So then the second part of like that mock interview was just coming in and with the advice that they had given me the first time and then just redoing the interview. And that it went so well. I felt so comfortable. They were just so inviting and kind, and it was really like more of a conversation, which people say that, interviews really just are conversations. They just want to see who you are as a person, because like ultimately you are qualified to be a student there based on your application. That's why you're, there for an interview, but they just want to make sure that your personality fits what they're looking for and that you're a human and that you actually care for people and aren't getting into this for the wrong reasons. So when you think of it like that, at the end of the day, an interview is not as scary if you're just yourself and just have genuine conversations with people. Mock interviews with the fire department are what helped me the most because like I said, I've had mock interviews before with my advisor, and I've had interviews, but there was always somebody in there that I knew. And that always made it a little bit easier because you have like a common connection, someone to make eye contact that will probably nod and smile. But I didn't know any of these firefighters, and I'm intimidated by firefighters. They're all, all buff men. So it was a little intimidating compared to your best friend sitting across from you. So that was like the best mock interview that I did that really made me nervous and really put me to the test of being myself and answering these kind of questions in front of people I don't know. So then my last one was one that I won online on Instagram at a giveaway by the PA Trek, and that was absolutely amazing. She was super helpful. She helped me just with, basically how to present myself and how to word certain things, and she asked me some more of like questions like where do you see the PA profession going, or what do you think is challenging the PA profession, which is another category of questions that are super important to know. You have to know what's going on with the PA profession. You have to be up to date with the laws and the regulations, especially within the state that you're interviewing at. It's super important to know that. So that interview really taught me to be careful and to be aware of those situations. So if you see what I'm saying, that each interview taught me to be aware of something that the other interview didn't. So it's really helpful to do as many mock interviews as possible. And I know sometimes they cost, or it's just really hard to find time, but even with friends, although obviously you're more comfortable, just putting yourself in different situations and having different questions can really help you when it comes to your real interview. December 7th rolled around. I was nervous. I had, prepared for a full month. So my interview was at 9 a.m. MBKU was about an hour away from my house, depending on traffic. It was a Saturday morning. But of course I prepared way ahead of time. So I woke up at like 6, I showered, got ready, did the whole nines, blow dry my hair, which I never really do. Like I got all, prepared. I had my outfit all steamed and everything the day before. I had breakfast. My mom got up and like wished me good luck, and they sent me off. I left early. I left at like 7 something, and I got there at 8:10. So our interview, like I said, was at 9. They told you to get there like about 15 minutes early. So I was pretty early, which I would way rather be early. And then I was sitting there, I was, just enjoying my music, trying to breathe. And then I started having to go to the bathroom, and I was like, oh no. So then I decided to get out of my car, and they have an interview before us. So the first one started at 8 a.m. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go. And so when I walked down the stairs, there were 2 MBKU students that I've recognized from like previous events. And I was like, oh, I'm just letting you know I'm not late to my interview. Like I'm the 9 o'clock interview, but I just need to use the restroom. So I went and did that. And so also when I had my interview, I followed their so they have a pre-PA club. So before that, they have an event for Christmas time for a toy drive. And so I saw that as a great opportunity to be able to take a toy to my interview and show that I know what's going on with the school and that I want to participate, and that as a student I'll be participating in things. So I went to Walmart before and I got a little fire truck toy to bring, and it was kind of like a thank you, good luck token hopefully for my interview, from mock interviewing with the fire department. So I asked them, I said like, hey, I have a toy for the toy drive. Is it okay when I come back if I bring it? And they're like, yeah, of course. And it was just a little thing. It wasn't a show off. None of the other students saw it. So I wasn't trying to like make it look like, oh, I know what's going on. I just did it very discreetly, but just hopefully that it showed that I knew what was going on at the school. So I went to the bathroom, came back, and then I waited for another girl I knew was actually interviewing that day. So I waited for her, and then we walked in together. I dropped off the toy. And then we checked in and did everything and sat around, and then we started our interview. And honestly, I met so many really nice people, and everybody was just very talkative. So going into it, I really wasn't nervous because I had already been conversing with people, and for some reason for me that helps a lot. Like if I walk in and I just talk to people, I usually am a little bit less nervous than if I just go in cold and like not have any time to warm up. So I just went into it after that just very comfortable, which really helped my overall interview. And ours was like student led for a lot of it. So we just talked to the students and asked them like their experiences and their advice and all of that. Another really cool thing that I was able to like have during that interview process was I saw familiar faces. So I have worked with a missions director before through like the pre-PA club when I was president, and I've been to a bunch of their like activities because they have really cool like social events, so I've been able to meet quite a few people, so just networking. So when I was there, like I saw a few familiar faces, so I was like, okay, like when I walked in, to my actual one-on-one interview in like the first room before we go to the actual interview, the admissions director was standing right there, and I was like, well, hello Leslie, like how are you? So it was just so cool to see a familiar face, and that gave me the little boost of confidence that I needed to go into my one-on-one interview. So for my one-on-one, I'm not going to tell you the questions that they asked me because that's just, obviously you can't do that, but I'll say they are very like typical, you know, interview questions. Like the interview books that they have, like Savannah Perry's, and then the other one that has like a list of the questions, they are really helpful to answer questions. A lot of the questions are kind of worded a little bit differently than how they word it, or like if you read Savannah's, it'll tell you the question and then other ways this question can be asked, and it oftentimes is more, you know, a different way of approaching the question, but ultimately, you know, they have the same kind of underlying things that they're trying to get from you. So I wouldn't prepare for specific questions, but rather topics. That was helpful. One thing that really helped me was that I memorized stories that really impacted me versus just like straight up answers to questions, because then it can seem like, you know, robotic and you're just trying to think in the back of your head like, well, how did I answer that? How did I word that? So if you memorize stories and certain details from stories that really impacted you, oftentimes you can pull from that story and answer multiple questions. Like I've had experiences in the pre-PA club, you know, some difficult experiences working, you know, with others and like trying to communicate and all of that. And so through that story, I can answer questions like, tell me a time you had adversity, tell me a time you were a leader, tell me a time you had to communicate with others to make something work. So instead of, you know, trying to answer one question, I remember a story that can answer multiple questions. But yeah, my individual interview started out just very typical questions, and then almost like right off the bat we went off script and they just asked me questions that like they weren't even planning to ask me, and then stuff just came up in conversation, and I made a really good connection. So I had it was a 2-on-1, and so I made really good connection with like I made good connection with both of them because I was trying to talk, but one of them had something that I had in common, and so we really just talked about that. And that just set the whole tone for the rest of the one-on-one interview because we were so much more comfortable with each other, and I was able to bring up things in my personal experience, and I told them like an embarrassing story, one of my patient care experience stories that I didn't think I would ever bring up in an interview, but it really connected to a point that, you know, the interviewer was really like trying to connect with me about. So it flowed so much more differently than I would have ever expected. So it's just to show that like you can go into your interview and like expect one thing, expect to answer all these hard questions, and then some question can turn into like a side conversation that turns into a different side conversation, and so you just never know how it can go. So really just know your application and know your experiences and think of details and stories to tell, and don't be just robotic and trying to answer the question and then be done. Try to make sure you have a lot of information and experiences to show that you're not only saying you're compassionate and want to help these people, but that you have experiences to show those words too. Another tip is to really know your school, and I know people say that all the time, like make sure you research the school that you're interviewing, but like really research the school you're interviewing, because then you can show not only why like that school is good for you, but why you're good for that school. So if there's something there that you really like, for example, MBKU has a pre-PA, like the peer mentoring program, and I was a pre-PA peer mentor for a few years, and so I mentioned that you know, I obviously have experience in that. That's something I'm super passionate about, and that's something I'll be able to give back to the school, that I want to be a mentor, that I want to help be a part of that club and possibly be, you know, on an exec board maybe one day, or just help out with events, whatever it may be. So show that not only am I interested in the school for that reason, but that I'm a good candidate to also help your school with that. So obviously every interview process, the different schools are completely different. They have different styles, different everything, so I could only speak for MBKU since that's the only interview I went to, but overall the experience there was just so relaxed, so comfortable. They made you like just feel at home, you know, they wanted to make sure you didn't feel uncomfortable or awkward or scared. They really tried to talk to you. If somebody was more nervous, they tried to, you know, communicate with that person to make them feel more welcome in the group. It was definitely just a home experience, and that's just one of the million reasons why I really love MBKU, is because they really do want to make everyone feel comfortable. So that was just such a great experience. The questions weren't like trying to trick you or anything like that. They were very common questions, just really wanting to get you to know you as a person, because, you know, they can see you on your application, but they don't know who you are really outside of your application. So it's just a great chance to show that you're a human, that you care, that you have person skills, you know, you can communicate with people, you can joke, you can laugh, you can make people feel comfortable. But it was a great experience, honestly. It was such, I'm lucky that that was my, you know, interview experience, and that if I had one interview, that I'm so thankful for that's the one I got. If you have any more questions about MBKU, obviously I can't tell you the specifics in terms of like questions, but if you have any questions about kind of the school in general or anything else about the interview, or just preparing for interviews, mock interviews, anything like that, where to find resources and stuff, you can always DM me on my Instagram at whitecoatchasing, or leave a comment down below. I'm always willing to answer, you know, your questions, DMs. I try to answer them regularly. I will get back to you. So don't be afraid to ask any question you want. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have an interview coming up and this is why you're watching this, good luck with your interview. You're going to crush it. Just breathe. Remember, they're just wanting to know you as a person. You're already academically, and like all of your experiences are incredible, and that's why you're there. You deserve to be there. You deserve to have that chance to interview. You deserve to show them how much, you know, how badass you are. You will be fine. You will be great. Just breathe. Remember, you know, why you're there. Remember your experiences, and think about the people who have inspired you to get to this point, and just bring them with you when you're on your interview, and you will do great. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.